Hi, I'm Nathan from the eBook Reader blog. For this video, I'm going to do a comparison between the Kobo Libra Colour and the Boox Go Color 7. They both have the same 7-inch color e-ink screen and a similar design with the page buttons on one side, but there's a lot of differences between them, so let's go ahead and get started. First off, they're both available in white as well. I think the white version of the Boox has an indented screen though, whereas this version has a flush screen. The power button's on the bottom edge here, and then on the side you got the USB port, there's a speaker, a microphone, and there's a micro SD card slot under that flap. The Kobo, it just has the USB port on the side, and it also has this flare to it where it gets thicker on the handle side, whereas the Boox, it's the same uniform thickness all the way down, and it's a bit thinner than the Kobo. They both weigh about the same though. The Boox does have a little bit more of a premium feel to it. The Kobo, it's just all plastic. Price-wise, they're pretty similar, but the Boox does cost a bit more at $250. The Kobo's $220. The Boox has a lot more going for as far as the Android operating system. So let's sort of talk about the OS first. So the Kobo, it runs a Linux-based operating system. You just have your library, you got notebooks. So this is one thing that separates the Kobo from the Boox, is it has notebook support. So you can buy the Kobo pen. It is sold separately, but it does work for note-taking on the device, whereas the Boox doesn't have any kind of stylus support, so it doesn't support the note-taking, but it does run Android 12, so it's a lot more versatile with the software. You can install apps. As you can see, I got the Kindle, Kobo, co-reader apps on here. You got the Play Store on board, so you just have to sign into that. You don't have to do any weird tricks to get it to work like you had to on some older Boox devices, and then you can install apps from there. They also have the Google Play Books that you could use as well. So the Android operating system adds a lot more additional functionality, but things aren't always as smooth as just a regular e-reader, so we'll talk about that a bit more later. But I think with the color device, having all these other options is definitely a plus, because Kobo doesn't really have a whole lot of color content. Even their comic selection is pretty limited. But with apps, you can install all this other kind of stuff. You can have like kids' books in here and different kinds of stuff like this. So yeah, the Android operating system is a definite plus. It's also easier to navigate with using gestures. And then you got all this other different stuff like calendars and all these other kind of apps, where the Kobo software, it's a lot more basic. It does have some stuff in here like a web browser, Sketchpad, MyWord and stuff. But you know, as far as installing apps goes, the Android definitely has a big advantage there. You can install co-reader on the Kobo, so there are a couple apps you can install. But with the Android, obviously, you got the Kindle app, you got a whole bunch of different kinds of stuff you can install. So big advantage for Onyx in that department. But you know, the apps, they don't always work as well as you might like. They can be a little bit more glitchy as far as page turns go. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later. I'm not having any luck getting the page buttons work with the Kindle app, even though they worked like before I did this review, but the app updated. Now page buttons aren't working with the app. You have to touch the screen to turn pages. So that's just kind of one of the glitchy things with the Android OS. But you got all these different customizable options. We'll go into a little bit more later. But I wanted to talk about the main thing that jumps out when you start comparing these two devices, and it's the colors. They stand out a lot more on the Boox Go Color, even though they both have the same screen, but it comes down to software. The Boox has some different color modes you can use. You got a custom color mode as well. Not all this stuff is customizable with this app, but with other apps. Whereas the Kobo, you can adjust the color, so you can turn developer options on in settings. I have an article on my website if you wanted to search that. So you can change these different CFA modes to change the color a little bit, but it's not nearly as advanced as like the color modes on the Onyx, and I can't get it to match the color on the Boox here, where you can see like the green especially stands out way more on the Onyx. But you know, I've come to the conclusion that a lot of this color on the Onyx is actually exaggerated. It's not very accurate. So here's another comic where it really stands out. Not so much here, but once we get a couple pages in, color is completely different on the Boox Go Color versus the Kobo Libra Colour, and you're gonna just automatically think that the Boox is doing a much better job here. I mean, I think it's probably better this way, but it's actually exaggerating the colors a lot. And here's a good example of this. I downloaded this book, and on the Boox, it shows it as blue. But if you Google this book, it's not blue at all. The cover of this book is actually gray. So it's completely exaggerating this color. And while it does look better, it's just not very accurate at all. So that's just one thing to consider. When we load up an ebook here using the default app on the Boox, you have a lot of settings, you have a lot of options, and the text does look pretty good. For some reason, I kind of seem to see like these color ink screens, they have this grid layer over for the color. It just seems to be a little bit less apparent on the Boox for whatever reason. I don't know if the flush layer is just sort of hiding it a little bit better or what, but The screen does just seem to look a little bit clearer on the books, but it's not a huge difference by any means. So they both have the front lights. Here's a look at the screen with the front lights off, but the camera kind of adjusts anyway. They also both have the the warm front light, so you can adjust the warm color tone. It just seems to be a bit oranger on the Kobo, but over the years I've come to realize that front lights can vary a lot from one to the next, so it's kind of hard to judge that sort of thing in a video, because you might buy another one and it might be completely different. But as far as these two go, yeah, the Kobo definitely has more of an orange color to the warm front light, but they both have good front light, like a range as far as the light brightness goes. The background on the Kobo maybe seems a little bit lighter without that flush front screen. So the flush layer is probably adding a little bit of darker color to the screen. But as far as the page buttons go, they're a lot softer on the books. They don't really make much of a clicking noise. Whereas the Kobo, you have much more of a clickiness to it. You can hear it more, but I kind of like the feel of it better. It's more responsive, where it doesn't really feel like you're really pushing much on the books. Very soft feel to it. So that's just sort of one thing to consider. So this is the Kobo app, and as you can see, the Kobo app, I hate the Kobo app personally. It's way less features than the actual Kobo e-readers. The fonts are not very good. You don't have any kind of boldness control like you do on Kobos. You have very few adjusting options, so it doesn't look very good. But when I load up a book on the built-in, the Neo reader on the books, you have tons of settings, even more than the Kobo, so you can make the text look better. It's not so faint like it was using the Kobo app. So it's just one of those things. The Boox Neo reader app, it doesn't support DRM books, so you have to remove DRM. So I mean, it's just sort of kind of a pain that way, but it does have a lot of features. What I really like about the Boox is you have these gestures to navigate the interface with the Android OS. Just makes it a lot easier and smoother to navigate by swiping up from the bottom to go to the home screen, or swiping to go back. And you have these different modes for the side buttons as well. So you can do long press. You can program any of this stuff to activate with a long press on the books with the page buttons, whereas the Kobo, you can invert the page buttons, and that's it. They don't support any kind of long press or anything like that. So once again, with the Android OS, you're getting a lot more features, a lot more customization than you are with Kobo software, which is a lot more basic. So they both have the highlights, and you can do multicolors. Boox does have some additional options when it comes to highlights. And you also have these different underline options and squiggly lines and dotted lines. So you have more options as far as that goes. And if you select one of the highlights twice here, you'll get an option to choose from one of these colors. Whereas the Kobo, you can do that as well, but you only have 4 colors to choose from as far as colored highlights. But the Kobo has a big advantage where you can write on the screen. However, my battery in my stylus is dead, so I can't demo that right now, but you can check the main review if you'd like. So one of the advantages with the Boox is being able to install the Kindle app. But as you can see here, it's a little bit glitchy. I mean, you can get it to work if you mess with the settings. Right now, I'm not able to get the page buttons to work, though. I don't know. It was working before. Now it's not. The app updated. So just kind of one of the things with Android. Things are a little glitchier. The refreshes aren't as smooth like when you're navigating menus and stuff. It's not designed for e-ink screens. So this is just one thing I always mention with these Boox devices. It is nice having the option of installing Android apps, but they're never as smooth as like a dedicated e-reader that was designed for ink. And like I said, the built-in app, it doesn't support DRM books, so it can be a little bit of a hassle. You have to remove the DRM for everything. So, I mean, while it is more versatile, things aren't quite as smooth. You do have a ton of customizable settings, though. You have different refresh modes. You can set that up on an app-by-app basis. You can also set different options for like the customizations for the app. There's different things you can set up to make the screen look better and to make refresh smoother, but there's all these different settings. So a lot more complex. There's also this navigation ball. If you're wondering what this is down here, you have all these different things you can set up on here. If you want to jump to different apps, you can use it to go back as well. So there's about 20 different ways to set up your device between gestures and the navigation ball and all kinds of different features with the Android OS. But when it comes down to it, Kobo's OS, it runs just a bit smoother. I mean, it's designed for reading and all the, the books in the bookstore, Kobo's bookstore on here. It's really good. It's like you can buy all your books through that, whereas the Onyx bookstore, it's really lame. It only has a few, public domain books. So as far as e-readers go, I still think the dedicated devices like the Kobos are a lot more better when it comes to reading ebooks. But with the Kobo's devices and the color screen looking a lot better, even though the colors are exaggerated, I think it actually works better this way. It looks better. But I mean, it just kind of comes down to the differences between Android and the Kobo software. You get a lot more features with Android. but it's going to be a little bit smoother, setup going with the dedicated e-reader like a Kobo or Kindle. But it just sort of depends on if you like setting stuff up, if you like customizing and, having different options for your e-reader. The Boox device is really cool. I do like that the screen looks a little bit better, even though it's not particularly accurate. But Onyx has been doing these color screens for several years now, where this is Kobo's first attempt. So they got a little bit of an edge there as well. Onyx also has some edge with the hardware. It's got more storage space. You got, the micro SD card slot, but, just sort of comes down to your personal preference. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Check out the ebook reader blog for full reviews of these devices. Thanks for you guys for watching. Bye.